In Disney's Encanto, We Don't Talk About Bruno tells us so much more about the family than the obvious fact that they don't talk about Bruno. My desire to relentlessly overanalyze things has always annoyed my friends for far too many years, so I figured I'd annoy you guys online instead. Heads up, there'll be spoilers ahead for Encanto, and I'll also be arguing against the Dolores' evil theories that have been flying around the internet. So now, it's time to overanalyze Bruno, no. Overanalyze Bruno. Hi. My name is Avalon, and although I've been horrendously unwell, that's no excuse for my terrible singing. However, I found that I've had a lot of time on my hands, so I used some of this time to watch Encanto 3, maybe 4, maybe 20 times. It's got incredible visuals, characters, and for what feels like the first time in a long time, a fresh story. More than anything, it has a great soundtrack with fantastic songs, and one of those songs is We Don't Talk About Bruno, which, as I said, tells us more about the family than first meets the eye. Bruno has the gift of seeing the future, and to our knowledge he's always been accurate with that, but let's not overvalue his ability. Although he can see death coming, he didn't kill anyone's goldfish, he doesn't control the future, he just sees it, like reading a book. The idea that he can see it is the toxicity of the family dripping through, which brings us nicely to our four main characters for this overview: Pepper, Dolores, Camilo, and Mirabel. Each of these characters show a different stage of that toxicity. So let's start with the inciting incident for this particular story, Pepper's wedding. At this point, Bruno clearly already has his reputation harmed through some other visions and such that goes on beforehand. I mean, Pepper literally says he has a malicious grin when he approaches her at her wedding, which implies that there's intent behind his actions. When we actually meet Bruno, it turns out he's a really caring individual and he just wanted Pepper to feel comfortable and just be herself on her special day, which is, it's a nice message. But Pepper is so stressed out with the wedding that she can only see the negative intent, and to be fair, I don't think Bruno's approach to the situation by saying, "I can see rain," is the best one to go through, but you can see how much happier Pepper is when she does let go at the end of the film, so he was doing it for the right reasons. If I am going to highlight every bit of evidence that the family is self-absorbed with pride and similar, I might also bring up the point where Pepper calls it my wedding day, and is immediately corrected by her husband to our wedding day, but I digress. The point is, Pepper sees Bruno in a negative light, and that comes from the abuela of the family, trying to hide any points that show the family is anything other than perfect. Even though they still refer to the wedding as a joyous day, they only really talk about Bruno's involvement as a negative one. And this then spreads to Pepper's children, which brings us to Dolores. Before I get into Dolores, there's some rumours going around that she's a bad person by not revealing Bruno's location, and I'm not really sure that I agree with that. In my eyes, there's two outcomes here. Either one, she can't hear him, maybe like Castita has some magic or something, but she says the lines, "It's like I hear him now," as if she doesn't always hear him, and we've just seen him in the film at this point to show that he's not in his safe space, so maybe it's just suddenly that she can hear him. Or maybe number two, she can hear him and she's heard his self-torment and shame from hurting the family because of the toxicity described here. It leads to 2A, she doesn't want to upset the family by revealing this monster is still nearby, or 2B, she doesn't want to upset Bruno through either compassion or fear of Bruno. Finally, when Dolores does finally state, "I can hear him now," the family are actually caught up in dinner, so there's no opportunity to share the information before all of that drama happens. Either way, not the evil mastermind people are painting her as. Anyway, Dolores is old enough to have known Bruno. She would have been like 11 when he disappeared, and old enough to be only partially brainwashed by the family. She states outright that she was aware Bruno had difficulties with his powers, and how he didn't want to share the information with the family as they didn't always understand. We, the audience, know they didn't understand the visions in the future anyway from Isabella's verse, where Bruno says the life her dream will be hers and her powers will continue to grow. And by the end of the film, obviously, we know that the dream was to take off her mask and just be herself, and her powers grow to more than just roses, and can be so much more than they were when he gave that vision. But back to Dolores, who states that she also grew up in fear of Bruno. So even though she knew his struggles, the toxic environment she's raised in had her focusing on the effects on the family when Bruno shared his gift with them. Dolores is then interrupted by Camilo, the product of complete toxicity. So let's talk about Camilo. Camilo is the same age as Mirabel, however ever so slightly older, meaning he was only 5 when Bruno vanished. Everything Camilo has learned of Bruno is through second-hand story, plagued with the negativity above. You'll notice he's the only one in the song who is directly negative about Bruno and hasn't had his future read. This has led to Camilo representing Bruno as a complete villain. A 7-foot frame is a monstrous stature, and the general colour palette in this song suddenly switches to greens and blacks typical of Disney villains. Camilo's verse implies that when Bruno selects you, bad things come, showing that any nuance from the visions has been lost over the generations. There's another artistic point here around the rats and evil linked together. It's really common for rats to be associated with the plague and filth and that sort of thing, but to those who have domesticated rats, you'll know that they're very intelligent and quite surprisingly clean actually. It's not really related to the family, but it's a great artistic choice to underline the message that there's more to the picture here. So Camilo is what the product of familial toxicity looks like. A negative opinion in the family gets carried forward through the generations, being taken to the extreme in children. I don't really think I need to hammer the point of the real world parallel here, but it does lead us on to Mirabel, who has now been given direct conflict and needs to know more about Bruno. Mirabel is the curiosity that was probably shared by Camillo early on in his life, and so by the end of the song, even Mirabel is of the opinion that Bruno should be avoided. Mirabel is the sped up version of how you get from Pepper's negativity through to Camillo's extremism, where because of that negativity that's been shared, Mirabel even suggests that talking about Bruno is why the prophecy is not looking great for her, stating, "I should never have brought up Bruno," after she completes the vision. So overall, you can see why Bruno hides away. He's being turned into a villain or a scapegoat by his family. I would suggest it's quite twisted, but since I tend to keep this to a more social gaming focused channel, I haven't really bombarded you with the brilliance of that musical. The toxicity that runs through the Madrigals is shown really early on to us in the film through this song, and it's not even slightly subtle. It's a really clever, in-depth song, and I haven't even commented on the other parts of the number such as the family dynamics or the music theory hidden in the chosen notes. I'll link a video to that covers it, because there's someone far smarter than me who does so. So I hope you can see the pattern here. Alma has her own feelings about how the family should be presented to the community, and it slowly spreads through everyone. The need for perfection and always being positive leads to Bruno being shunned away after his theories and his visions and such aren't really received particularly well by anyone really. This then leads to only negative stories existing around Bruno, which then begins to pollute the minds of the children, which then leads to Camillo having Bruno in his head as a complete villain. We then get to watch that toxicity spread to Mirabel, who then begins to almost blame Bruno for the vision that she reads before she's actually met the character. I'm not qualified in psychology and I'm not a counsellor or anything like that, but it does make me wonder, did the family need to fall apart to learn this lesson about how toxic their basics were? Or is this something that could have been dealt with way sooner? I'd say it's probably the latter, but again, not qualified, don't want to comment on it. Anyways, so like I said earlier, there's way more to talk about when it comes to this song and this video, but that's all I'm going to comment on for now. And this sort of content is probably not going to be common on this channel, I don't think, but I just wanted to talk about it because my friends are sick to death of me talking about stuff like this. And I'm sorry I've been so absent. My health just got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and you can hear me deteriorate during the Majora's Mask randomizer, which I actually must get that finished. But there you go. It's good to be back, and thanks for being here. I'm going to start getting things uploaded again. But I'm not going to promise any sort of regularity to it. But yeah, with all that said, I have been Avalon. This has been an unnecessary overanalysis, and I'll see you guys next time.